The year was 2006. I was a 19-year-old college student heading out on my first backpacking experience in my own country. Growing up in a small town in São Paulo state, I didn't have a lot of traveling experience besides visiting my grandparents' farm in Minas Gerais or spending the summer at the beach. I chose Rio de Janeiro to start my journey. In Rio, I stayed at the cheapest hostel that I found, and to my surprise, it was filled with travelers from around the world. I remember meeting this older gentleman from Japan who didn't speak a word of Portuguese or English. As a college student, I was also studying Japanese, then I thought, what an amazing chance for me to finally practice my Japanese. We had long, interesting conversations, and despite my beginner's level, we connected. The next day, he showed me his travel journal in which he dedicated an entire page writing about this unexpected experience of talking to a Brazilian Japanese and how happy he was meeting a local. That moment changed me. It showed me how language can break down walls and create powerful human connections. And this was, in fact, the beginning of my long journey, diving to 6 foreign languages and becoming a polyglot. And today, I want to share with you how learning another language can completely change your perspective of the world and bring unexpected benefits to your life. The limits of my language mean the limits of my world, said Ludwig Wittgenstein. I've always found it fascinating how learning a second language gives us different perspectives, as each language tends to draw more attention to certain things. Flora Larris, an American journalist and language enthusiast, said that learning another language is not just learning new words for the same things, but about discovering entirely new ways of thinking. When I was learning Japanese, for instance, the teacher explained that you have to change the grammar depending on who you're talking to. Generally, casual language is used with friends, polite language in most public situations, and highly respectful forms if you're talking to superiors, like a boss. This affects not just pronouns and vocabulary, but also verb endings. So whenever I was speaking Japanese, I had to constantly think about hierarchy, because Japanese really draws attention to this, as each form expresses a different level of politeness. This is one of many examples that show how language can influence our perception, besides showing cultural elements through the language. Linguists still debate exactly how much language shapes thought, but one thing is clear: learning a new language can expand how we see and process the world. And we don't even need to look that far. Consider the distinction between the verbs ser and estar in both Spanish and Portuguese, a rare feature among the world's languages. If you ever studied one of these languages from scratch, you probably struggled at first to distinguish between a temporary or permanent state. This doesn't mean native speakers are more aware of the difference. It means their language constantly draws attention to this. In other words, as the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis suggests, language doesn't determine what we can think, but it shapes what we tend to notice or pay attention to. And this deeper engagement with language doesn't just change what we see. It actually changes how our brain works. Research with bilingual individuals shows that once you speak more than one language, all your languages are constantly active in the brain, even when you're only using one. This means your brain is always managing attention, switching between systems, and suppressing interference from the non-target language. This mental juggling strengthens core executive functions like concentration, problem solving, working memory, and even creativity. In fact, a landmark study by cognitive neuroscientist Ellen Bialystok found that bilingualism can delay the onset of dementia by an average of 4 years compared to monolinguals. In other words, Learning new language is not just good for communication. It's a workout for your brain. In addition to cognitive benefits, learning another language can also boost your career. In today's globalized world, speaking more than one language is not just a bonus. It's a key to unlocking professional opportunities across borders. It gives you the freedom to move to another country, expand your network internationally, and access job markets that would otherwise be closed. For instance, a report by the New American Economy highlighted that demand for multilingual workers in the United States more than doubled between 2010 and 2015, indicating a growing market value for language skills. This demand also applies to Brazil, where only 5% of people speak English, according to a British Council report. Learning other languages didn't just change my path, it transformed me. Without English, for instance, I would never have received a Fulbright scholarship, taught at Middlebury College language program, or perhaps even be here today at the American School of Brasilia. Each opportunity came because I chose to speak beyond my native language, and the world answered back. Finally, learning other languages can also bring powerful social benefits, building a bridge to other cultures. Whether you're living abroad or just traveling, speaking the local language allows for deeper, more meaningful interactions, and even a sense of belonging. And yes, you can order food or book a hotel using English or a translation app. But real cultural insights, those subtle, unwritten rules of how people think and live, often only come when you speak the local language. I remember when I was backpacking across Europe, I had a completely different experience in Italy and Spain by being fluent in both Italian and Spanish in comparison to my trip to Berlin, Germany, where I was relying on English. On a night train from Italy to Spain, I met Giuseppe, an Italian chef from Naples. When he realized I spoke Italian, he started sharing secrets of Italian cuisine, cultural do's and don'ts like why cappuccino is only for breakfast, and stories that had us laugh all night. If I had spoken English, he might have answered my questions, but we wouldn't have shared the same level of connection. Another incredible experience was visiting my Spanish friends in Barcelona, who took me around the city, cooked the traditional tortilla, served the sangria, making my stay in Spain truly unforgettable. Nothing compared to my trip to Berlin, where I was basically communicating with locals in English just to order food or ask for directions. In other words, language is not just a tool. It's a bridge to friendship, trust, and cultural understanding. Well, it seems that learning other languages brings so many lifelong benefits, right? However, as a polyglot, I must admit that my first experiences learning new languages came with plenty of difficulties and challenges. Stephen Krashen, a renowned linguist, broke down the process of second language acquisition into 5 stages. The first stage is called the pre-production, also known as the silent period. This is basically the stage where you're just absorbing the language. You might respond with single words, gestures, or remain completely silent. Overcoming this awkward phase, where you often feel like a helpless baby, it's one of the most difficult parts of learning another language. And really, who wants to sound like a baby in another language? During a short stay in Amsterdam, I decided to learn Dutch. Though everybody there spoke fluent English, Even the Dutch would ask me, "Why are you learning Dutch?" Determined not to switch to English, I made a rather unusual decision. For an entire year, I pretended not to understand English when talking to Dutch people, even though I would stay quiet or just say a few words at first. I often felt awkward, anxious, or frustrated. I was about to give up, but I persisted. As crazy as it sounds, it worked. Although I didn't spend enough time there to reach the final stage, I overcame the silent period and managed to reach an intermediate fluency in a short period of time. Speaking the local language gave me unique insights into Dutch culture and created lasting memories. It also gave me the chance to make connections outside the expat community I was living in. To conclude, I invite you to reflect on how learning another language has changed your life. And if you haven't started yet, what's holding you back? Don't let that initial silence discourage you or make you feel awkward enough to give up. It's a natural part of the learning process. Language is not just for travel or work. It's the key to empathy in a more connected world. Even if you're not planning to live abroad, consider all the phenomenal benefits language can bring to your life, and let others discover your true self through the power of language. Thank you.